It all began with a smile, confident, charming, and almost disarming. A smile you could trust with your life, a smile that could make anyone hand over everything they had. On Wall Street, he wasn't just another broker. He was the golden boy, the guy who could turn every handshake into money. His name echoed through glass towers and upscale bars, where the clink of champagne glasses drowned out the smallest doubts. For years, people believed in him. Investors, friends, even family. He promised more than wealth. He promised belonging, a piece of the American dream so many chased. But behind the tailored suits and polished shoes, a shadow was growing. Numbers didn't add up. Statements shimmered with lies. By the time the truth came out, over $200 million had vanished along with the man everyone thought they knew. What drove him to build this empire of deceit, greed, fear, or something deeper, something painfully human, the desperate need to be seen, to matter? This is the story of the $200 million illusion, a story of brilliance, betrayal, and the dark corners of human ambition, where even success can become a prison. Before he became the man who sold a $200 million lie, he was just a regular kid with bright eyes and a burning ambition. He grew up in a small town, a place where dreams often got buried under bills and reality. From a young age, he believed he was meant for something bigger. He didn't want a life that felt ordinary. He didn't want to repeat his parents' story, working their whole lives and barely having enough for a warm dinner. Even as a kid, he was different. While his friends played video games, he was buried in finance books. He devoured stories about Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, people who dared to dream and break the rules. In his mind, America was the place where risk-takers were rewarded. He believed that with enough smarts and boldness, every door could open. Then he came to New York, the city that never sleeps, where neon lights mix with human ambition. He worked day and night, scribbling notes, studying numbers, learning to read investors' eyes. He didn't just want money, he wanted to be remembered. He wanted to prove that an unknown kid could do something extraordinary. And that's how the idea of a fintech startup was born, a company that could change the way the world invests. He spoke about it with such conviction that people believed him. They saw a genius, a young revolutionary. But behind that shine, there was a deep loneliness. He started to fear that if this dream failed, the world would turn its back on him. So instead of facing failure, he chose to craft a perfect illusion, a dream so convincing that even he could no longer tell where reality ended and the lie began. Part 3, the first spark, the lie that worked. It all started with a small lie, a little tweak in a report sent to investors. Just a few numbers polished up, a few charts bent to look more impressive. He told himself it was just this once, just to get through the first funding round. Everyone colors their dreams a little, right? And then something miraculous happened. Money started pouring in. Handshakes grew firmer. Smiles looked more trusting. Suddenly, that small lie had turned into a ticket to heights he had never imagined. Financial magazines mentioned his name. Investors called him Wall Street's young star. Lavish parties, toasts, congratulations. It all made him feel like maybe he really deserved it. But deep down, he knew the foundation of this empire was built on sand. He could feel the tremor in every deal, the fakery in every smile. Yet the rush of admiration was too sweet to give up. He convinced himself he would make it right someday, that eventually the company would succeed, and this lie would become the truth. From a harmless tweak, he had stepped onto dangerous ground. And what he didn't realize was that once you taste the power of deception, it's almost impossible to go back to being honest. Once the lie started paying off, it felt like the whole world was helping it grow. The press hailed him. Social media called him the face of a new generation. Interviews, photos with luxury cars and glossy offices flooded every feed. People wanted to believe, because the dream he was selling wasn't just technology. It was hope that they could get rich too, hope that they were part of something extraordinary. He looked around and saw hundreds of people trusting him. From stiff gray-suited investors to young, eager employees, all believing they were building the future. Every compliment, every handshake made him bolder, but also more afraid. Because now, the truth didn't matter. What mattered most was everyone's belief. And he got addicted to it, the feeling of being trusted, being celebrated like a genius. He started to forget who he once was, forgot that it all began with a tiny lie. In a world where belief could become currency, he became the bestseller of illusions. But the cost of keeping that illusion alive was only getting higher. Everything came crashing down in an instant. The news spread like wildfire, and the people who once clapped and laughed with him now turned their backs. The stock market shook, shares plummeted, contracts were torn up, and promises shattered into pieces. He stood in the storm, feeling betrayed not by others, but by the illusion he had built himself. The crowd that once cheered now recoiled. Investors were furious. Reporters tracked his every move. He felt empty, a loneliness so sharp it hurt. The smiles, the praise, all of it now echoed from the past. Looking into the mirror, he saw a stranger, a man who once believed he could rule the world with just a lie.
I don't think so.
When they came to arrest him, he didn't scream or plead. He was silent, eyes dazed but carrying a strange hint of peace. When asked why, he whispered, heavy with pain, "For one moment I was who I always wanted to be." For a fleeting moment, when the whole world believed in him, he felt truly alive. But the price of that moment was total collapse, the harsh lesson that ambition without honesty always leaves marks that can never be erased. Even the greatest lies can't live forever. The cracks began quietly, like rain seeping through the foundation. A sharp young journalist noticed an empty lab, a product demo that was nothing more than lights and screens. Questions started to surface, whispers of doubt slipping into the ears of those who once trusted him completely. He could feel the pressure closing in. Every phone call carried a threat, every email a warning. Late at night, he'd stand by the window of his high-rise office, looking down at the glowing streets, wondering if anyone truly understood him. He wasn't just fooling the world. He was fooling himself. He kept telling his reflection that everything was fine, that he would fix it before it all came crashing down. But deep down, he knew the truth couldn't stay buried. The faith people had in him had become a cage, forcing him to keep the lie alive. Each deception grew heavier, every smile more painful to fake. And as the cracks began to bleed, he started to realize something haunting sometimes. The person most deeply wounded by a lie isn't the one who believed it, but the one who created it.
It's dropping too fast.
The day everything fell apart came without warning, and all the lights of his dream went out at once. News spread across Wall Street, from the towering skyscrapers to the small cafes where investors watched stock prices tremble. Every contract, every promise, every trusting smile shattered into pieces. He stood in the eye of the storm, silently watching the world turn its back. The people who once admired him now looked with disappointment, anger, and even disdain. In his empty office, he sat alone, heart pounding like never before. The eyes that had followed him so faithfully now cut like knives. Everything he had built was just an illusion. He realized that it was his own self-deception that had led to this tragedy. He was no longer a genius. He was no longer a hero. There was only a man, stripped bare, facing the truth. When the police arrived, he did not resist. He was silent, eyes dazed but carrying a strange sense of peace. When asked why, he spoke softly, yet with a weight of emotion. "For one moment, I was who I always wanted to be." A fleeting moment, when the whole world believed in him, he felt truly alive. But the price of that moment was total collapse, the harsh reality that ambition without honesty always leaves marks that can never be erased. In the quiet days after the storm, he sat alone in his jail cell, light streaming through the bars onto his weary face. No bright lights, no applause, just the loneliness and fear he had never faced before. He realized that everything he had done was not just to prove he was smarter than everyone else, but to avoid being ordinary. He feared being forgotten, that his life would pass without anyone remembering his name. The world outside, where success was celebrated and failure shunned, had made him believe that only by reaching the top could he truly matter. But now, with everything collapsed, he saw that fear was what had driven him down a path of wrongdoing. The fear of being ordinary can make people lie, deceive others, and even deceive themselves. He looked back at his choices, the lies, the twisted hopes, and understood that ambition without truth always carries an inevitable pain. The light through the bars cast shadows on his face, a reminder that no matter how smart or ambitious a person is, they must face the truth in themselves. Every lie, no matter how clever, comes with a price. Other people's trust is not a gift given lightly. It is a spiritual investment, and when it is betrayed, the pain spreads far and wide. He learned this the hardest way. $200 million vanished, but the real loss was never the money. It was the trust, the respect, the innocence of those who once believed in him. Ambition without conscience becomes toxic. Moments of glory, cheers, and applause, they are all temporary. Belief can be turned into money, but the truth always exists, quietly yet impossible to erase. Looking back at the illusion he created, seeing the people who followed him, he understood that every success built on lies comes with a cost. His story is a warning for all of us. When you sell trust, know that sooner or later, the truth will surface. And when it does, the price is not just personal failure, but the wounds left in the hearts of those who placed their faith in you. Every lie carries consequences, and every dream built on deceit will eventually collapse. Trust is the most precious thing we have, and it is never cheap. Every sin carries a lesson, and every lesson opens a door for those brave enough to face the truth. This story isn't just about one man and $200 million. It's about choices, fears, and the moments when people confront themselves. In him, we see a reflection of ourselves, the desire to be recognized, the fear of being ordinary, and the ways we sometimes deceive ourselves just to survive in the eyes of others. If you've ever dreamed, failed, felt the pressure of society, or had your trust misplaced, know that you are not alone. Every story, every sin, every collapse carries a message to learn, to empathize, and to grow. These lessons aren't just in books. They exist in real lives, in the decisions we witness, and in the choices we make. So if stories of ambition, betrayal, and human awakening speak to you, hit like, subscribe, and join us at Sins and Lessons. Here, we explore tales of wrongdoing, but more importantly, we uncover the lessons, the empathy, and the light that shines through the darkness. Every video is a reminder that behind every sin, a lesson is waiting to be heard.